All right, what's going on, guys? So in this video, we're going to be covering phone prospecting ins and outs, essentially, okay? So this is going to end up on YouTube. So if you're watching this on YouTube, I attempted to go live and record this at the same time, and the audio was great, but the video drop frames were so bad that I'm re-recording this. So that was a 50-minute live slash recording that basically I'm just redoing over. So hopefully I hit all the topics that I covered in that. But for everybody that's watching this on YouTube, hopefully this is valuable to you. But just so you know that this is actually part of my No Excuses REI course, and it is it's basically the phone prospecting ins and outs portion of the intro to kind of the cold calling and that part of creating opportunities inside of that. So some of the things that I'm going to cover, some of the resources and stuff, they're not going to be in the YouTube description, but there will be some resources in the YouTube description that I am talking about. So feel free to knock those out and get those, including, you know, the different softwares that I use and stuff like that. And, you know, realistically, you could probably create and look at the different Excel documents I'm using, and hopefully just out of this, you just basically get some sort of value. And then I can answer some questions in the description. And I'll be going live and covering bits and pieces of this on YouTube and covering more in more detail. So who you're seeing on the screen is Speedy. That's REI Sift's mascot, if you will. He's a guy behind the scenes. I decided about a week ago, 2 weeks ago, that, you know what, I really want REI Sift to have like a brand feel. You know what I mean? Something more than just REI Sift. So we're going to be implementing some what's called gamifications inside of REI Rail, or REI, not REI Rail, REI Sift. And in REI Sift, basically, you'll be able to, you know, get badges, and you'll get different icons, you know, depending on how long you've been a member, and just some cool stuff. They really bring that in. And then also Speedy will have a bunch of different outfits, you know, depending on, you know, what you've done. Once you close a deal with using like list stacking and REI Sift, you know, and you mark that in there, you know, we'll end up sending you a, you know, a different one, a stuffed animal, if you will. Like, it's gonna be super awesome. So excited about that. So I just wanted to have him up here just because I really like working on this web app and building it out. And you know, this isn't about REI Sift, but a lot of the stuff that I'm covering today, REI Sift is in the middle of all of it in my business model. That's why I'm building REI Sift. So just keep that in mind, and I'll cover some of that on the board once we get to that. Let me go ahead and turn off this camera for now so the battery doesn't die, because we'll be using that board here in a second. So, okay, let's go ahead and click off Speedy real quick. What is the intent of this section? So what we're going to be doing is we're going to be covering basically from start to finish, the kind of the ins and outs, whether you're doing, depending on what type of cold calling you're doing. So actually, let me turn this back on and make sure it's awake, and hopefully the audio is going to be okay. I'm going to end up using this microphone that I'm using on my desktop to try and reach over there. It's not the best, but we're gonna work with it. Kind of lean it over there. We're gonna turn it up, and then we're gonna switch over to my camera over here, and hopefully this will work out. Okay, so before we cover a whole bunch about the difference in cold calling and prospecting in general, I want to really show you two different things. So you have two different types of prospecting, right? You have what basically calling a single person, right, or a bulk. And I break this down into really two different categories. One is niche, and one is shotgun. All right, so niche would include things like driving for dollars, list stacking, referrals, shotgun approach. Like for shotguns, you know, in shotguns you got different chokes. You know, you could have like an open choke where you're shooting really wide. You can narrow those chokes in depending on what gauge choke you're using, and you can really kind of narrow down also your bulk. You know, I would call like your equity You know, a big list of equity would be considered like wide open, okay? And then if you have like a tax delinquent, um, that is, you know, a bigger list, okay? That might be a little bit more narrow, but it's still shocking. You're still like hitting the masses. It's not really targeted like a niche is. Um, Really, the singles, you know, single the niche. Now, tax delinquent is still a niche list. It's still a niche prospect, but it's not a niche in, as far as like the type of prospecting you're doing with the dialer and all that kind of stuff. Okay. So keep that in mind. It's really the two differences, and I have different tools that I use depending on which ones of those we're doing. So we're basically going to walk through those. We're going to cover different list templates and the different places you get numbers and stuff like that, as well as how to track these numbers so that you're getting the best results. We're not going to delve a whole bunch into the systems themselves, but we're going to kind of go with the ins and outs. Okay. So before we do any of that, what we need. Let's pull this back. I need a different like arm for this. What we need to cover is real quick how to get numbers. So if you're using bulk numbers, okay, like if you're doing the wide approach, what I use is batch skip tracing, and I'll show you that real quick. We'll pull that over here. Get this on the screen. It's loading. Batch skip tracing is super awesome. I've been using them for a long time. They've come a long way. Their website wasn't this fancy when I first started using them. It was pretty straightforward. But it's really simple. All you got to do is submit your list. Now, you can use wherever else you want to, but I like batch skip tracing. REI SIF will have skip tracing in it as well. We'll hopefully have that integrated here within the next 3 months or so, depending on when you're listening to this. But by this point, you should already have your list from the previous course content, and you should know kind of what you're targeting. Now, if it's a niche list and stuff like that, the previous templates that we've covered, you want to make sure you get those niche lists, like your tax list, stuff from your county. You want to make sure you get it cleaned up and in the type of format according to my list template that I provide to you guys. But anyway, what you do is click on submit your list. Make sure you export as a CSV. You can download one of these templates, but the template that I give you guys will fit perfectly fine with them. You don't have to worry about it. Drag and drop it in here and submit it, and you see their pricing here. It's great for, you know, anything 50 leads or more, between 50 and 1,000 leads at 35 cents. Man, you cannot beat that. It's freaking golden. It's super awesome. Now, if you're doing individual, if you're doing some individual searches, I like to use True People Search. That's my go-to on that side. So I'm just kind of like moving it over so I can type it in. That's my go-to on that side. You can put in the name. You can do the city, state, zip, and that will, you know, try and find that person. You could also do a reverse address search, which is essentially when you put in the name and the, or rather the address, and then the city, state, zip of that address, and then it will try and find the previous people that have lived in there. So let's just say it's a landlord that's had that, you know, property for 10 years. It's going to show the last 10 years of tenants most likely. So you're going to have to call through those, but it's great for trying to get a hold of a landlord, because if you can't find their mailing address or whatever, you can try and call the tenant and say, hey, yeah, I was just trying to get a hold of him because of this, that, or the other. Do you mind, you know, giving me his phone number, and do that route. So then you have reverse phone. If you have a phone number of somebody, but you keep getting like return mail, for example, you could put their phone number in there and find out where their actual address is, and that helps out a lot, especially when you end up having homeowners that are like landlords that are out of state and not local. Because like if it's in your county, your first thing's going to probably be using your public records, searching by their last name and first name, trying to find what their homestead is. That's not going to work out if they're out of state, so you can do a reverse phone number search. So there's some good tips on you there. There's other things like Skip Genie, which is inside the link below as well if you're on YouTube, and quite a few others. Find what works for you, use it. That's how I get my numbers, batch and this, and then I will only be using REI Sift once that's in there, because literally this whole process from my list templates, once I upload a list into REI Sift, I'll never have to touch a list again, because it'll go straight from REI Sift into my call tools and everything else. So anyway, All right, so if you're going to be doing the single on the left-hand side there, if you're going to be doing single, okay, you're going to be wanting to use some sort of phone system to do those single dials. You could technically use call tools, which is what I use for my massive dials, but if you use call tools, you're not going to be able to track it as easily. So I recommend for single dials and for follow-up type stuff, you use CallRail. If you don't have CallRail, Google Voice, and you could use Google Voice or a Skype phone number. However, Google Voice is trackable, so don't really use that for tracking numbers and stuff. The biggest thing with all of this stuff when it comes to like Google Voice and call tools and all these things, when you're going to be receiving any sort of inbounds back or responses back, make sure you have your voicemail set up. Don't be that person that has a Google Voice number, and when someone calls it, like on a bandit sign or from a return call from cold calling, and it's like, oh, this Google Voice number does not have a voicemail set up. That is so unprofessional. Just don't do that. Okay, save yourself some money and the tens of thousands of dollars you could be losing, and just make a 30-second voicemail, guys. Okay, guys and gals. All right, so I just made a quick No Excuses REI company one attached to my company account, just because I didn't want all the numbers like spamming it. In the bottom left corner, after you log into your CallRail, though, you're going to end up having this lead center in the bottom left corner. If you don't see this, you're going to want to go click in the drop down here, go into your settings, check to see what your account has. You might have to pay extra for the lead center. I don't know. It came with it for me because I've had CallRail for so long, but I know their plans and their pricing's changed. So I think someone who recently I was talking to that ended up having to integrate it, ended up being like $10. They had to pay extra onto their account. I think it was a one-time thing, not a monthly thing though. But look into it. It's worth it. So check it out. You click on Lead Center though, and it's going to pop up. I'll close this one out now. It's going to pop up, and it's going to have kind of like that. Well, it's a lead center, okay? So it allows you to do your calls and your texts through here. All you're going to do is you're going to select this little phone button here, and that's where you'll be able to dial the phone numbers for the homeowners that you're trying to call. Then you'll have a caller ID that you have set up in here, which I've showed previously in the course how to do that. And then you can either record your phone call, or you could send it to your phone and talk from your phone if you don't have like a headset or a microphone or anything like that to set up. But you can use, like, this is my PS4 headset, the Logitech something. So sometimes I use those because they're, walk around with those, or most of the time I'm just using my mic with some headsets plugged in. Or you can get like a Logitech. One of my buddies uses the G540s a lot. Whatever's good for you, whatever works out. So, or your VAs generally. Like I know one of my cold callers has like a $400 microphone. It's crazy. Her audio is really great and she's great. But most of your cold callers, make sure you're checking in with them. Make sure they have good headsets. Okay. So that's pretty much it with it. You dial the number, you click begin call, and boom, it's ring, 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 ring. We're not going to be covering what to say to them on this video here. This is just the ins and out of the ways that you actually get ear to ear. That's why I call it when you're talking to somebody on the other side of the phone. That's called ear to ear, and we'll cover that more when we go into the cold calling campaign tracker. So this is the list template you're going to be using. It's broken down like so. I've showed you guys this before, but essentially if you're doing single calls, you want to be able to have some sort of info sheet that dictates what different colors mean. So for example, I had that one that was highlighted green. After you import your data, whether it's a list source list, and your VA breaks it down to clean, missing, companies, trusts, numbers, and no numbers. So once you get sent up to skip tracing, when it comes back from skip tracing, you take that original source file from skip tracing, put that in a different folder, and just take the numbers from that, copy your clean data and take the numbers from that, put it in here, filter it between results that came back with numbers versus without numbers. I have other YouTube videos, and for the people in the course, you've seen that before. REI SIFT, we'll do this for you all automatically. So you take only the clean data, and that's what you send for skip tracing. But if you're doing manual dials, or let's just say this is a driving for dollars list that you exported from Deal Machine or wherever else, or you manually created this and you imported it on here, what I do is I move the notes from over here. I insert a column. Let me undo this here from earlier. I insert a column. I put the notes in here instead of over here, and then I just take the mailing address because I won't need that when I'm calling, and I just go and I hide that, so that what I can do then is I can go here, I can say first name, last name, and I'll have a whole list of them here, but then it'll actually be under this numbers column because you're calling the ones that came back with numbers. but I would insert it over in the middle. I'd hide the mailing addresses. I'd be dialing the numbers. Once I got a number that got in contact with them, I would remove the rest of the numbers, or I would highlight that one bold so I knew that was the number that got in contact with them, and then type in any notes so everybody's all the same. And that's that. Let me make sure I delete this out of here so that I don't accidentally leave it in here for the students and everybody else that's got access to this. But if you're going to be using this and you don't have Podio set up, you'll go ahead and you'll highlight it green so that all the rest of the team that is calling the same list know that that person's already been called, and vice versa. You can set these different criteria if you want to copy this down, whatever. If you're part of the course, make sure you click File and make a copy. Don't edit this one here. Okay. So after you have found a lead, if you're not using Podio, okay, after you found a lead, people in the course, or anybody else who might already have this, I created this for you guys, where you just type in your first name, last name of the owner, so you copy over that information and then set the status, right? If it's a lead and they became a lead, you can put them as new, okay? And then once you get in contact with them, you can switch it to contacted. And then once, you set up an appointment, you can set an appointment. If you go to the appointment and they never, show up, or whatever, you want to do a follow-up contract, or, once you get it under contract, you switch it saying it's under contract. Now anything that's under contract, you're trying to sell that contract. Once that happens, you switch it to the assigned, and once it sells, you switch it to sold. Boom, bam. Super awesome, easy enough. And that all flows into using that data, whether it be in Podio or inside this lead tracker for your cold call tracker campaign. So that's pretty much it for the single dial stuff, okay? You can also, I'll show you here in Call Tools in a second how you can do the single dial stuff inside of Call Tools as well. But let's go ahead and switch over to that. Okay. So this is Call Tools, the stats and everything inside your campaigns, just as a quick thing, because I didn't know it at first when I first started using Call Tools. Those campaign stats all reset at a certain time of the day. And it's all based off of whatever you have under, your address range or your date range right here. You can also say show active only, so any campaigns that are actively working when you click search. Or you could create a new campaign, whatever. We're not going to delve into campaigns and stuff. If you're on YouTube, then I've created another, it's like a live video. It's almost 2 hours long, I think, about delving into Call Tools. It's kind of a little bit all over the place, but in the end, I think it's valuable content. So stick through it and don't be that person that kind of, clicks through every 10 minutes to try and get to what you want. Watch it through, because there's golden stuff in there somewhere, from answering questions to people and stuff like that. And if you're trying to shortcut a 2-hour video, then this might not be the right business for you, because it happens all the time when you share a video with somebody. You're like, oh, wasn't that funny? And they're like, what are you talking about? Oh, did you not watch the whole thing? No, I skipped to the end. Why'd you do that? You missed the important part. It's usually in the middle. So just keep that in mind. But anyway, I'm not going to delve super into it, but there's some key points I want to mention with this whole ins and outs kind of theme here with this video. And one of those is making sure that you're setting up your campaign, you have your campaigns on and ready for your callers to be taken care of. Make sure that if you're cold calling yourself, in your mind you can track it, what you want to call on what day. But if you're having a cold caller, make sure that you have your team aware what you want called and when you want called. Or if you want only one list called at a certain time, upload all your lists, but then pause the campaigns. Call Tools does a really good job doing that. I'm going to go ahead and replay that, because 2 days ago I forgot that I was editing some stuff, and I had both of these paused, and I ended up staying up really late. I woke up at noon, and my caller was like, hey, it's been paused. I haven't been able to do anything. I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I did that. Anyway, so make sure you have your Redial Templates set up and everything else like that. We're not going to delve in actual course. We'll cover some of this more pretty quickly. We're not going to go too heavy in it in the prospecting side, because of creating opportunities in the course, because there's going to be you get really deep into this, and cold calling might not be what you're using, so I don't want to put it in this intro to wholesaling side. That's going to be a bonus course that's out there and available. So don't worry about that. Okay, don't worry about the Redial templates. Just know that for Redial templates, I'll explain those briefly. If you get connected with, if you're dialing in 3 people at a time, you get connected with 2 people, you're going to answer one of them. That second person is an abandoned person, okay? That it's going to pick up, but you're going to end up hanging up on them, okay? But you don't want that person to like think, oh, what happened, and then just ignore it. So you want to send them a text message and say, hey, sorry about that, this, that, and the other. I'll call you back. And then you have redial campaigns on top of that. That basically every 15 minutes later it dials them again. So much so it just kind of keeps going. And then if we don't contact them after like 6 times, I think is what I have in my Redial template. I had it up to 18 times, but that was a little excessive. After 6 times, it will go ahead and it'll forget about the person now, and it'll go ahead and you'll handle that person in a recycle campaign. But the biggest reason that's so important compared to like Mojo is that person picked up the phone, which means that that number was good, and you really want to try and take advantage of the fact that that was a good number, whether it be the person that was actually owner of the property or not. You want to take advantage of that. So that's one of the most amazing things about Call Tools. Super awesome. Some other things to note, like I told you before, you want to make sure you set up voicemails for your phone number. So account, audio, make sure you're adding your audio files in there, making some voicemails. If you have multiple agents and you got a team of cold callers, make sure as you're going through and you're planning out your business, you're focused on like whoever's your best cold caller, they need to end up becoming your cold caller manager. Okay, they need to be managing other cold callers, press and play and pause on different things, and they're the liaison between you and everybody else. You don't want to be managing all 5 cold callers. You want that good cold call, that one that really understands your business, that's doing great, and you want them to you pay them a little bit more, they manage the people, take that away from you and step outside of that. Wait until you master managing yourself first before you do that. All right, and we'll talk about how to get cold callers later on. Okay, so what else do I want to cover right now? That's pretty much it. We're not going to cover how to upload anything into Call Tools quite yet. This is the ins and outs of cold calling, just a synopsis of the whole process. We're going to delve more into this step-by-step later, like I said. But I think that's pretty much everything I want to cover on the actual admin side. Let me go ahead and I'm going to close this out. I'm going to log into, I'm not going to show you that yet. We're going to log into the dialer for for one of my agents. And I'll kind of show you that real quick, and then that'll be that. That way you're familiar kind of what Call Tools looks like from the inside. I highly recommend, you don't know how much I recommend it. I love Call Tools. All right, moving over. So this is what it looks like from your agent's dashboard, okay? And you're going to hear in a second, it's going to say, you've now been connected to the predictive dialer.
Connected to the predictive dialer.
And that could have been pretty loud because this microphone's still kind of loud. Okay, so this is what it looks like. If though you've seen those campaigns were played or were activated, but you're not going to see them here because it's not within the hours that I said the callers can dial, so it's not going to show up here. Okay, at 9 o'clock in the morning tomorrow, you'll be able to, when she logs in, she'll be able to see these, and she'll be able to click Join Campaign. Once you click Join Campaign, nothing's going to change. What's going to happen is once somebody's connected, the caller is going to end up seeing this contact card pop up. Okay, we're not going to delve into all that, but they're going to end up seeing that that content card pop up. That script that was in there a second ago, we don't use that script at all. We have a training that they go through that includes a modified script that we use. It's really, we don't even use scripts. It's more so just conversations with people. Okay. We have guidelines and kind of, a flow that we like to follow, and handling objections, all that stuff. Whether you use scripts or you don't use scripts, you're always using a script, okay? It's just a matter of how you present that to the seller, okay? There's also that single dialer. Like I said, you can use Call Tools for the single dialing feature. You have to purchase a phone number in there, but it's still stupid cheap compared to like Mojo and everything. But you can dial from here. Once that contact card pops up and you get connected with somebody, that person that hung up, remember, we're gonna try them again later, but we've sent them a text message. Any voicemails that we're hitting, we're actually dropping a voicemail in there, so that you'll see them in some campaign stats. I pulled last week's and the week prior's kind of campaign stats from one of my new callers, just so you can kind of have an idea. They haven't called a whole bunch, but at least you get an idea of kind of how that tracking works, okay? So you can call out of here, you can dial whatever. There's voicemails, and you can have your appointments. Like we don't have someone get put into Podio or as a lead. If they say, I don't have time right now, can you call me back in like 2 hours, she's going to set an appointment to call back in 2 hours. That's not going to go into Podio because we still haven't talked to them to figure out if they want to sell or not. So that's that. I think that's pretty much all I want to cover there. I'm trying to keep this kind of quick because I want to cover a lot of content, but it's kind of this like quick boom. We got like ins and outs, and we'll delve deeper into this as we move forward. So either way, like I never had this. This is like, to me, I wish I would have had something like this. Okay, so that's that. Now, I think that's pretty much everything in terms. Let me just switch over to this again. I want to show you guys. I'm going to stay right here, but I'm going to read off that. So on the left-hand side, remember we have two different types of, prospecting. We have like a single prospecting, which covers kind of niche stuff like you're driving for dollars. Those are single people that you're reaching out to. You also have your list stacking, which is like what REI Sift does. You import all your lists in there, and you can see like, okay, I was driving for dollars, and I added somebody in there, and it turns out that they're also on my tax delinquent list, and they're also on my absentee equity. So that means they don't live there. I drove past it, and I seen it look like crap, and they're delinquent on their taxes. That shows a really big red flag, and you're going to niche down on those people and cold call them pretty hard. Then you have your referrals, and then you have your bulk stuff. Your bulk stuff is your shotgun approach. It's your more wide spread stuff. That's your equity list. Your bigger tax delinquent list. Stuff like that you really want to use that dialer for. If you don't have the money for that, then hey, when I first started, I went through just like I showed you on that Excel document. I was just dialing massive lists. Dialing just every Craigslist person. Just practicing my craft. With getting used to talking to sellers. All right, so that's pretty much it there. So make sure you keep those things in mind, all right? So moving on from that, what we're going to do is we're going to cover tracking your campaign, whether it be single dialing or it be through the bulk. The bulk with the dialer, it helps a lot because, it tracks a lot of those numbers for you as far as how many people have been called, how many voicemails, all that stuff. If you're doing single dialing, you're gonna have to sort through it in CallRail, and you're gonna have to know, and every single time you kind of get a call, you're gonna have to kind of do some manual recording of your data. But anyway, this is it right here. I'm not gonna go into this a whole bunch because of we're going to delve into this more inside the course, but as far as YouTube, I'm going to show you guys this, but I'm not going to delve into it super heavily, okay? So your campaign would be like your county that you're calling, or you could say that your campaign is absentee list, and then you could say your prospect is, is equivalent to like the different counties you might be marketing in. Your ID is the ID that links this campaign to this individual campaign inside of it, like this row. So like between the dates of 3/18 and 1/23, this is my caller's first week. This caller's first week, and I jotted it in here so that you guys could see this kind of process. Okay, so on any of these leads, these 8 leads that she got here, they are recorded and tracked against ID 1 on this prospect and so on. Okay, that way when we close the deal, we can come and we can update the deal's close so that we can have an idea of what that campaign actually did, even if it happens 2 months from now. All right, so keep that in mind. So, and you can kind of edit that and come up with your own system as far as how you use your IDs and everything. But let's break this down a little bit. So we have campaign county ID 1. It's an absentee list. Abby's calling, and she's at $4 an hour as a cold caller. She worked 19 hours, actually 17 hours. Actually, 19 of 2 of those hours were actually training. Total cost of $76. That was from 3/18 to 1/23. In that time frame, in those 17 hours or whatever, not all of those are straight on dialer type stuff. Remember that. You're like, oh, only 1,702 dials in 17 hours of sitting there at the computer. There's breaks in there and stuff like that. I give liberties, like you don't want to drain out your cold callers, okay? You want to figure out how much it costs and what your ROIs are, and go from there, okay? Generally speaking, if you start dialing and you're cold calling, even as an individual, if you're calling 40 hours a week, those last like 5 hours are freaking hard. They're not easy. By the end of the day, on most of the days, you're like, you're like dying, right? So I recommend starting off 2 or 3 hours a day. Have your KPIs for the day, and if you're doing it by yourself, make sure you're trying for dollars part of the day. Make sure you're following up with some of your business stuff part of the day. and make sure you're cold calling a good part of the day, or following up on leads, whatever. Anyway, so out of those 1,702, there was 760, my nose is itchy, 764 answers. But out of those 764, there was 193 connects, which means the rest of them were voicemails, or no answers, or there were no answers, and then there was 193 of those were actual connected connects, and then out of that, 152 of those were we were actually ear to ear on the other phone. Someone answered, we spoke to them about wanting to sell their home. Out of the 152 of those ear to ears, that's a 20% ear to ear percent ratio. At 8 leads, that's for every 19 ear to ears, we get a lead. Okay, that's $9.50 per lead, or per lead. And if you this is from last week, so we have not closed on one of these deals yet, but if you close one of those deals at a 13% lead deal ratio is what that would create, and that's 152 calls per deal closed, right? Which, because that's 1, if I were to switch this to 2, it would go down to half that, 76. Now that means that your cost per deal is not $950. It's actually, this is actually messed up. Cost per lead, this 97 actually needs to be cost per, it's actually, this is wrong. It needs to be the cost of the campaign divided by however many leads you have. This is your actual cost per deal. So it's $76 because it's 1 deal, full campaign. Now if it was 2 deals, it would end up being $36 per lead. But even still, eight leads. The whole point of this, okay, is just this one, you could end up being 0 and 0 here, okay? But the important thing is down here. The important thing is, after doing this and tracking this for a month, once you get, let's just say, another that needs to be, I need to add another stack on this one. I thought I copied over everything from mine, but apparently I didn't. But at any rate, what you want to end up knowing is what your average lead is, okay? And after you have your average lead, you want to know the average between how many leads it takes until you get a deal. It's tracking it on an individual level here. If you do 1-in-1, it's tracking it from an individual level, but you need to know that from a higher number. And you could, by just doing this percentage, by the average percentage divided by the average lead, you're going to get an idea. But you want to know that. You want to know, well, how many leads does it take over the course of a month for me? And you just basically, once you know these numbers, you just scale how many calls you're doing to reach the numbers you want to get to. But anyway, that's going to give you your actual campaign ROI. So like if this deal closed at 10,000, then that would be a 13,000% ROI. And we do the same thing. Wow, my nose is super itchy. We do the same thing for mail campaigns as well. Now that's pretty much it. Now you also want to track the campaigns that you're actually doing. So if you have like an absentee list, 2019 Oklahoma absentee is ID 1. That's a Google Sheets link. That way you can always have those as well. I don't really have to worry about that because all my stuff's inside of REI, Sift, and will get ported over into Call Tools and everything. So that is how that works. For the guys that are in the course, make sure you download that. Start using it and let me know. If you're doing manual dials and you don't have Call Tools reports to fill in some of that information, what you want to do is you want to add in some extra stuff inside this list, this lead tracker here. I'm not adding them into here just because everyone's not going to be doing it that way. So I don't want the extra data in here. But if you are, add another extra column so that this lead here, you can say was part of absentee and which ID it was from. That way you can cross-reference these so that once this switches to sold, you know that it was part of that campaign and that ID, so you can come back over here and make sure you switch this to 2 or 3 or whatever, okay? Because the deal isn't going to close in the first week anyway, you know what I mean? So you're going to have to keep track of that for a while. In Podio, you can just use filter options, but manually do it in here. Add a column here for list and campaign ID, and you'll be all set. So I think that's pretty much it. That's all I really wanted to cover in this campaign ins and outs. Just don't forget the two different types of, oh, the camera kind of fell asleep there. It's going to kind of shoot back on. Okay, don't forget the two different types. You got your niche and your singles. I'm going to real quick break down on here. Let me turn this up. I'm going to real quick cover, because somebody asked it when I was live earlier, and I told them I would remember what was asked so I can cover it again. The big things that I want to cover real quick is what do I do with these different ones? Okay, what am I currently doing on these two different types of prospects in order to reach out to them? So I'm not doing massive RVM anymore on this side, because when I'm calling, as you've seen in there, when out of all the calls we make, we might get maybe 75% pickup rate or 50% pickup rate, depending on the list, depending on the time of the day. So we're dropping voicemails with call tools to those people anyway. So because we end up potentially dropping or not connecting with at least 750 people a week on a part-time caller, what that means is that those are getting dropped. So if you divide that by 7, that's at least 100 and I don't know what 50 divided by 7 is, but let's just say it's 110. It's close enough. It's like 110 voicemail drops a week, or a day rather, which is basically what we were doing when we were doing RVMs anyway. So we just nix the RVMs, and we just integrate that into call tools. So with call tools, we're doing our dials, and then people are also getting text messages from call tools when we don't pick up with them, so you can count that. They're pretty much just doing cold calling on this side, and anybody that has numbers. Sorry, that might be like weird reading that sideways for you guys. Anybody that has no numbers, they go to mail. But not all of them, because I like to keep my mail budget down. Primarily ones that are stacked and whatever other areas and zip codes that I'm interested in, we'll also send to mail. On this side, we're doing cold calling to the Drive for Dollars lists and referrals, and all of them are also getting mail. Okay, and depending on the situation, they're also getting texts. We're not texting bulk for single stuff, niche stuff that we're really interested in. We are hitting them in every way that we can. So that, I think, answers the one question I had when I was attempting to do this live before, and they all got messed up. So hopefully that helps. This is, phone prospecting ins and outs. It is the first, video for one of my courses. For No Excuses Real Estate Investing. The links for that is in the bio or down below, really on my bio on IG, and also down below for anybody on YouTube. You can check that out if it's something you'd be interested in, if you're wanting to shortcut kind of some of these processes. For people that are currently in the course and anybody who might see this in the future, what I focus on is not teaching an exact process. As you've seen here, I showed two different methods here. I showed you, what I do and, where I find my success and what kind of tools I use. My life is not exactly like yours, right? My situation, I left my W-2, and not because of the fact I didn't like my W-2. I left it because of time, right? I wanted to open up a little bit more time. I'm allowed to go back to my W-2 until I think November or something like that. And there's a good chance that I might, because I really like my job. I like the things that I do. It's there's a lot of self-satisfaction in it. As long as I don't feel as though I want the time anymore, because my business is automated, and it's about fitting the businesses that you're trying to build into your lifestyle. A lot of guys don't want to do wholesaling to become millionaires, honestly. Hell, I know in the cybersecurity world, I know quite a few millionaires that still just work a W-2 in cybersecurity. So it's about self-fulfillment and whatever you're seeking, yourself, and what kind of lifestyle you want. There's a big fad and a big, hoopla out there right now about leaving your W-2 so that you can be an entrepreneur and all that stuff. That's a bunch of BS a lot of times, A lot of people don't have what it takes to leave their W-2. To be honest with you, a lot of times being in the W-2 and being an entrepreneur at the same time, if you want to say that's being an entrepreneur, having those side hustles, I mean, that is like the drive for a lot of people. Once you leave the W-2, you lose a lot of drive, because while you were at the W-2, your whole drive was to leave your W-2. Now that you leave the W-2, you're like, well, crap, now I don't have no more drive. So keep that in mind. So I'm about showing you mind maps, showing you business practices, and letting you take all these different resources that I'm showing you and the different processes that you can do to build them into, what fits your lifestyle, what fits your budget. And at the very end, we bring it all together, and we cover, different, models that you could follow depending on hypothetical scenarios of whatever your lifestyle is. So hopefully this was beneficial to you guys. Hopefully you guys found some sort of content and some sort of value in it. If you did, for the people in the course, thank you so much. Appreciate you guys. For anybody on YouTube or seeing this anywhere else, give us a thumbs up or a like or subscribe or whatever it is. Make sure you guys ask me questions on IG at Tyler Austin Original, and also make sure that you are, where did my No Excuses REI thingy go? There we go. Make sure that you're, always educating your mind, always helping other people, and I promise you, as long as you're doing those two things, you will find prosperity. And whatever prosperity means to you guys, it can mean a totally different thing to me, to you, to anybody else. Prosperity is a very big animal to seek out and find. Mental health is a huge part of it. So just figure out what you want to become happy. Figure out what your family needs in order for everybody to be happy. And like I said, if you guys have any questions, hit me up on IG, Tyler Austin Original. Comment below, and talk to me on Discord or wherever else I'm at. Thank you guys so much. I'll see you guys in the next educational video.